How Everything is a Self-Help Book by Alan Fashion. If you could ask somebody who had gone from 0 to 10 or 2 or 3 to an 8 or 9 how they did it, then what would they say? Would they say it was from reading self-help books? It is possible they will say this. But they could also say many other things. This book is about the other things they can say, and as well, it is about other books than self-help having helped them. Possibly, though, some people really do have problems that make it hard for them to start. And this article will look at how everything you read or see on television or at the movies can be some kind of self-help. This is without being critical of self-help books themselves. Perhaps, they do have a purpose to them. Some people benefit from self-help books on their own. But, as well, after reading this book, the reader might feel that self-help books are narrower in scope than they had previously thought. Perhaps, some authors when they write things have altruistic motives to help people. This might include people that have the types of problems you read in self-help books. Many books including novels and other non-fiction than self-help are sometimes about experiences that put people back on the right road to a normal successful life. Still, it seems that many of their readers might never have realized that so many books they read were really about this. Or at least they were about it in a way if you're looking for that type of thing. And this is when it is not as well only a good story. So, anyone might read it just as it is a story. Indeed, in one way, lots of literature is about a problem or a crisis that is resolved at the end of the book. And many good writers will write well about this type of thing. So books might help people in that they at least stretch their readers' minds. This is when they are a type of puzzle. Also, this is when their readers' educations might have ended a long time ago. Otherwise, their minds might not be stretched later in adult life except for things offered as entertainment, amusement or a diversion. Perhaps, you think that puzzles really help older people. Also, you think that they might help some young people as well. But is it a bit of a stretch to say that novels help people by being a puzzle? It might be. Also, it could as well be a bit of a stretch to say people are helped in any other way by fiction and things normally offered only as entertainment. For example, you could say that if novels, other books and films were just to entertain people, then that is still a great help to their lives. But it would be in an almost completely normal way that anyone would think about entertainment. This is as well with nothing else but entertainment and work that people might need as adults. When people have entertainment, they can talk to their friends, pick up girls in some joint or dive, have girlfriends they see or make love to women. And this is only because they are so entertained and as well, they can talk about it. All this is just as you would expect of anyone who had something to do in his or her spare time and conversation they could make about it. So what if you did ask somebody how his or her life had changed and improved to see what he or she would say? As well, you could ask how it had gone back to normal. This is if indeed it had. Also, you could ask if this was just what they had wanted to start with. Someone prepared to talk about how their lives got back to normal or got better might say something like the following. Somebody else came into my life. They advised and counseled me. Also, they shared experiences of a life well lived, they had traveled widely and they had done exciting things. Or I was inspired in other ways. Also, somebody coming into somebody else's life could have shared some of their things and encouraged them in a hobby or pastime. This hobby or pastime took their interest for the moment. Afterward, they went on to do other things. And they did them now by themselves. These things kept them active and busy and they made new friends. Something changed in my life. This could be something somebody changed for himself or herself. Or it could be something they had no control over. The thing that happened could have been normally either a good thing or a bad thing. If it was a good thing, then it boosted their self-esteem. They now had places to go, people to meet and things to do. And the problems they used to have now seemed trivial. The life they have now is so full of good things and genuine problems to solve. And it is not about the minor and boring problems they had beforehand. This was no matter how much these problems had occupied their time beforehand and seemed to be big, unsolvable and major problems. And if it was a bad thing, it showed them that other people, or they, even if it happened directly to them and not just to someone they knew, had real problems. Beforehand, they just imagined they had any bad problems. My family situation changed. Perhaps one of their parents or both their parents died. Or their parents retired and moved away and no longer wanted to see their children as much. As well, they might not have been able to see them so much anyway anymore, even if they had wanted to do so. Also, their parents could have become infirm or frail or had some disease of old age that meant they were not able to counsel their children anymore or do things together with them. When this happened, somebody might realize that nobody is invincible. Their time will also be coming. This might be when they are old, or it could be sooner. Also, they might realize now, if it is true of them, that they have no children themselves as they are to their parents. So, there is nobody who will look after them when they are old and nor come round and visit them. That means that, if they want to have their own children, then they had better become a bit organized so they find someone to settle down with. Also, somebody else, such as a friend they knew, might have died, become ill or got a disability, have had their circumstances reduced or something else bad happen to them. And if it wasn't somebody they liked, then conversely they might also have stopped seeing a negative person that was in their lives. To have good social skills, you should have seen the latest film, read the latest novel, watched last night's TV or must-see drama and done a whole load of normal things you might not have been doing up until now. As well, you might benefit if you lose some weight around the waist, shed a few extra pounds elsewhere and do some exercise. Also, you'll want some new clothes. This is to look presentable, at least if not quite yet fashionable. And when you have done these things, you will probably not have so many personal problems like the ones you had up until now. You won't, because now you have a normal life and normal things to talk about. And normal things to talk about are either normal problems or they are entertainment. Just doing what you've always done when there are no real problems with it is what causes so many only imaginary problems. And this is for so many people. You have no worries but those of your own making. That is until you get real problems or you see other people have them. Alternatively, you can get some good problems instead. That stops it as well. Many books are about people who had personal crises, adversity and difficult problems. And these books are not just a puzzle for the reader as some books might be. This is such as some murder mysteries are just a kind of puzzle sometimes. Instead, they could be about average people's lives with problems and crises they settled. Or it could be about exceptional people such as leaders in any field or adventurers who had real problems. Perhaps, some people do not see characters in novels as being real people like themselves or their friends. To them, fiction is about using your imagination and about invented worlds. And they might not change their own real life unless it happens to them. Or if they are lucky, it might just happen to a friend of theirs. But, really, nobody wants to wait for it to happen. It might be beyond some people's ability to change how they read fiction. But, possibly, they could just carry on seeing it as being about imaginative worlds and a complete fiction and even so keep reading. This is when trying to enjoy it a bit more for that. And this is when they may never be able to see it as anything more anyway. It can just be a bit of me time. And it can take them away from any minor problems. So knowing this, they might try to do more and not less of it. Then it might help them. As well, they might read more if they did this than struggling to see things from other people's perspectives. They may find it impossible to see things from other people's perspectives in a novel. This is just as if the characters' lives are as real as theirs and their friends' ones. And it is often just because of how they were first taught to read works of fiction that they are not able to do this. When people see characters in novels as being like themselves, then perhaps they have already had all the help they can get. They may have even stopped reading novels many years ago. This is when seeing them before as like self-help books. And it wasn't that they were allowed a peek inside somebody else's head or other things you hear about reading novels only for entertainment or a bit of amusement. Or it did not as well help them by getting them out of their own lives or their own problems a bit. Nor was it whatever else other people are supposed to read novels for but that they themselves don't get from them. Instead, as people in books had no different lives from their own, they then stopped reading. How boring, though, it must be if everybody else's life is like your own. Perhaps, you could start reading again now instead of self-help books and think these people's lives are indeed different from your own one. People in books might not really have the same problems as you do. This is when as an adult now and not a teenage reader you might see that your life today is different to many other people's lives. So you can go back to reading novels as you did when young. Books can now get you out of yourself a bit once again and you can enjoy them more. Any change that people can make might help them. It seems that any change that people make can cause other positive change and improve their lives overall. One possible change that people can make is how they read stories or non-fiction books. They could read them as if with fresh eyes or as if they were new to them. Or it could be reading for a different reason than previously and seeing things in them that they didn't quite see in them up until now. Also, it can be enjoying reading. And so people read more without feeling guilty that it is just for pleasure. An example of reading for a different reason is to imagine you are reading novels as a student even if you don't go to any college. You could get a book on how to criticize novels. Then, you can read a novel and write an essay on it. Or it could be actually going back to school that cures you of your personal problems and apathy. You will have somewhere to go when you get out of bed that you can look forward every day to going to. Also, you can meet other young people like yourself who are students. Or if you are an older student, then you can meet other people who also want to talk about books. As well, you will broaden your mind and improve your mental skills and capacities that can mean you solve many of your personal problems. Another idea that helps some people is to stop feeling like owning things. Some people have to own things, to take possession of things, or they want to define things and to describe them. It seems that, for some people, it's not enough to see a beautiful woman, a beautiful building or a beautiful landscape. They have to copy it, put it down on paper, to see things when the things are not there, in fact quite literally, make an exact copy of it as possible or transform it creatively. This could be for writers, artists or any other type of creative arts. Perhaps, when you've done enough art, then you will feel bored with it. And this is particularly if you learn your lessons quickly that you might feel bored with it sooner. As well, it might only be then that you can stop. This is as you really are bored with it, you have learned all you can from doing it and you have no new ideas or experiences that you have not used. Then knowing you have possessed already everything you painted or wrote about as much as it is possible to possess them normally, you can then stop trying to do the whole thing. This is when doing art or doing writing is quite normal. It is normal as a student or just for a hobby. But, now, you can get another hobby or go back to watching the television. In a way, it is quite normal to feel a bit down and then have to get yourself back up again. It must be quite normal because anyone can see that at times people will have more support than at other times. This is because of different people coming in and out of their lives or for some other reason. As well, it could be just by chance and the vagaries of time. For example, somebody could have read a good self-help book with much needed advice in it. Or they could have started a diary that had eventually helped them, perhaps when it was after a few months from their starting it that they felt better. Also, they could have done a college course, started going to the library or been given the present of some books. As well, they could have got a computer and made a start at using one properly. This is perhaps after some false starts. And it could have been anything else. But one consistent thing was probably that it took a change of some kind. Only occasionally can people make change happen themselves. This is when often success is from outside help. Change, it seems, is necessary for people to go back to how they were. This is when they were all right beforehand, but then their lives started getting bad. Their lives would have had to have been all right beforehand for them to have even just survived to as far as now. At least, this is unless they are not still teenagers or they have not only recently left home. Yet often people can't just go back to how they lived previously. Though, this is assuming that just going back would indeed work. It might not. And it might not, if only because circumstances can change as well. For many people, change is necessary. And it is often a good thing. It seems that change cures many ills. People have different things to think about and new challenges to meet. And perhaps this is all anyone needs. Though, there really may be self-help advice they do need and that will help them. As well, this advice is more than saying to get back in the saddle after falling off their horse. Still, you can read many things that might help you. Also, you can see plenty of things on TV. They might help just by being some input into people's lives from outside of it. Or, as well, it could, in fact, have been a real person that helped them in the end. The end.